University of Texas, the Longhorns have been able to win 3 Big 12 regular season titles. But for the Longhorns, getting the postseason tournament has been a bit of a struggle. This year, though, the Longhorns were really hoping and really clamoring for a Big 12 tournament title in Kansas City, Missouri this year in the 2011 version of the Big 12 tournament championship, For the Longhorns, though, the road seemed rather easy leading up to the final against Kansas on Saturday afternoon. Against Oklahoma on Thursday night, they defeated the Sooners 74-54, and then against Texas A&M on Friday evening, the next evening, Texas defeated the Aggies 70-58. So Texas averaged 70 points in both games and did a great job defensively against the Sooners and the Aggies by limiting their offensive capabilities and shutting them down. Against Kansas, though, Texas was just unable to do any of that, possibly due to fatigue, but Kansas played a much better ball game against the Longhorns, and they obliterated the Longhorns 85-73. Even though it was a 12-point win, the score is not indicative of how dominant Kansas played Texas on Saturday afternoon. It was a rather one-sided affair. Texas was just unable to maintain any stability underneath the basket, of which in this podcast I've kind of discussed at how Texas at times will not play as strong as they should underneath. Kansas had full control of the paint on not only on their offensive side of the floor, but on Texas's offensive side of the floor as well. In fact, Tristan Thompson, Texas's freshman sensation, the forward for the Longhorns, he only managed 7 points and 2 rebounds against Kansas, compared to double-digit number rebounding nights against Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Kansas just shut down Texas on the inside portion of the floor, on both sides of the floor. They just shut down Texas. For the Horns, Jordan Hamilton led Texas against Kansas with 21 points scored. He had 7 rebounds on the evening, and helping him out was Corey Joseph, who finally made his reappearance after having about a 2-week layoff. Corey Joseph, the guard for the Horns, 14 points scored, 3 rebounds against the Kansas Jayhawks. But Kansas was just on fire all night long. Their entire starting five, the entire Jayhawks starting five, all scored in double digits against Texas. They were all in double figures scoring against the Horns on Saturday afternoon. The leading scorer for the Jayhawks is Tyshawn Taylor, their guard, scoring 20 points and having himself 4 rebounds. But it was the Morris twins underneath for the Jayhawks, Markeith and Marcus Morris, the forwards for Kansas. They did the most damage by limiting Texas's capabilities inside. Markeith Morris scored 14 points, Marcus Morris scored 17 points, and Markeith had 9, and Marcus had 6 in terms of rebounds. They both played extremely well, and they just held down Texas to an uncomfortable margin. Texas was just unable to do anything for Saturday afternoon. And for Kansas, Kansas talked about going into this game that they wanted to kind of play the way they should have played back when they played the Longhorns earlier this year, in which Texas went to Fog Allen Fieldhouse and defeated Kansas, ending their, I believe it was a 49-game winning streak at home. So for Kansas, they got, I guess if you really want to call it, they got their revenge on Texas by defeating the Horns in the Big 12 championship. Interesting note about that now. Texas is now 0-4 against Kansas in the Big 12 tournament. 0-4 in the Big 12 tournament. Texas has not been able to get around Kansas. Kansas has been the mystery for Texas to defeat. They've been able to play other teams in the tournament very well without such difficulty, except for the Kansas Jayhawks. And it speaks volumes to what Bill Self's program, how good Bill Self's program is at the University of Kansas. He has built an extremely great program from what Roy Williams did back before Self came in during the mid-2000s. So, credit Kansas, another big win for the Jayhawks, another conference tournament for them. They are certainly a team to be reckoned with in the NCAA's this year. So, I think for a lot of people watching that game, I know a lot of folks are disappointed. And certainly it was disappointing to kind of watch Texas falter and be excessively poor in the ball game. But let's remember, they were playing against a team of which had been playing lights out going into the Big 12 tournament. They had been blasting opponents by a lot of points. So for the Longhorns, it was a tough night, but it's something to learn from going up against the teams that Texas will be playing or could be playing in the NCAA tournament. Some other numbers from that ball game: Texas on the night, Texas shot from the field 40%. Wasn't terrible, but once again, that's credit to Kansas, forcing Texas to take a lot of outside shots, and that point is made on the 3-point attempts from Texas. They were 7 of 20, 35% from three-point range. Texas is not a three-point shooting team, as much as they like to think so, and as much as guys like Jacobin Brown and Corey Joseph want to think that they're a three-point shooting team. Texas isn't a deep threat team. And free throw percentage was actually pretty good for Texas. 12 for 15. They were 80% on the day against the Kansas Jayhawks for the Longhorns. So, give credit to Texas there if they did a good job on free throw shooting. From Kansas's perspective, though, they shot 56% from the field. They were ungodly good against Texas. They were very good. It was Kansas shooting 41% from three-point range. They were 7 of 17, and they were 66% from the free throw line. So Texas, they matched up well in terms of how both teams played. Texas and Kansas are almost similar in some sense, in some ways. Both teams like to play in the paint. The difference is, though, Texas has moments due to the fact that Tristan Thompson, Corey Joseph, they're young. Texas places a lot of their game plan on those two gentlemen, especially Tristan Thompson. They place a lot of their game plan on him to play well. And when he doesn't play well and he gets pushed around like he did against Kansas, Texas kind of suffers. So for the Longhorns, once again, they're going to be without a Big 12 tournament title. Take that for what you will. The thing is, though, for the Longhorns, the most important thing is now they're moving on to the NCAA tournament.